for initial sound fluency of the Dibels assessment. You're going to start this assessment by giving a copy of the sheet that contains the 4 practice pictures and place it in front of the student. The sheet will look like this. After the sheet is in front of the student, you will say, as you point to the pictures, this is mouse, flowers, pillow, letters. Mouse begins with the sound mm. Listen. Mouse. Which one begins with the sounds full? When the student responds, if the response is correct, you will respond back to them, good. Flowers begins with the sounds full. If the student is incorrect in their response, you will say, flowers begins with the sounds full. Listen, full, flowers. Let's try it again. Which one begins with the sounds full? Once the student understands that one, you will move on to the next practice question, which will bring you back to your initial page, and you will point to pillows. You will say, pillow begins with the sound p. Listen, p, pillow. What sound does letters begin with? And you'll point to the letters. When the student responds, if the response is correct, you will say, good. Letters begins with the sound O. If the student is incorrect, you will respond, letters begins with the sound O. Listen, O, letters. Let's try it again. What sound does letters begin with? When the student understands, you will move on to the actual assessment. When you're doing the actual assessment, you will continue with 1 page of pictures at a time. You will point to each picture as you say the name of the picture. You will start off by saying, here are some more pictures. Listen carefully to the words. And then you will proceed to name and point to each one of the pictures, just like we did in the practice one. When you ask the question, each question that you ask, you will give a maximum of 5 seconds for the student to respond after you have asked the question. When they respond, if the response is correct, you will circle the 1. If the response is incorrect, you will circle the 0. Once you ask the question, you will hit your start on your stopwatch. Once the student responds, you will hit stop on your stopwatch. And you will continue to do that for each one of the questions that you're presented with for each sheet. If when you pose a question, the student takes 5 seconds to answer, you'll stop the stopwatch and you'll mark that question as incorrect. So in other words, if the student is having a difficult time and you've given them 5-second wait time, you assume that they do not know it, hit the stopwatch, stop, and then mark it as incorrect. And then you'll continue on to the next question. You'll continue through the assessment until you get to the end. At the end, after you've asked all these questions and shown each one of the pages, you will record the time in seconds at the bottom, which you will find on your stopwatch. You will add up all the ones that you've circled, and you'll enter that in the total correct. And then you can do your calculation to figure out the correct initial sounds per minute. Some basic rules to follow during the assessment. You will discontinue the test if after asking the first 5 questions, the student is unsuccessful in answering all of them. You will simply mark a 0 on the sheet, the score sheet, and stop the assessment. If the student is correct on any of those 5, you will continue to the end of the assessment. You will mark a student correct if the student names the picture instead of pointing to it. You will mark the student correct if the student renames the picture to something different and it begins with the correct initial sound. You will mark the student correct if the schwa sound is added to a consonant. You will also mark the student correct if they get the initial consonant or vowel sound or sounds. You will mark the student correct if the student pronounces something incorrectly, but it's due to articulation or a dialect. You will mark the student incorrect if the student renames the picture and it begins with the incorrect initial sound. And you will mark the student incorrect if they respond with a medial or end sound or a whole word. And that concludes our training for the initial sound fluency on the Dibels. Thank you.